the analyst who shattered the system. She never planned to fight a system built to erase people. But when the truth hit her doorstep, silence was no longer an option. A gentle drizzle blurred the edges of buildings in Philadelphia, as Maren Voss folded a report she wasn't supposed to see. Nestled in a worn apartment above a coin laundry, she'd spent years unnoticed in the city's audit division. But numbers didn't lie, and they painted a damning picture. Millions allocated for youth programs had vanished across multiple budgets. The trail led to Urban Rise Initiative, a nonprofit that didn't exist outside digital records. No phone, no office, just transfers. Maren printed everything, hid the copies beneath her floorboards, and left for groceries. By the time she returned, her apartment had been ransacked. Nothing stolen, just disturbed. Her colleague Yvette Kim called immediately after the break-in. The police arrived too late, and no report was filed. Maren sensed this was deeper than embezzlement. She ditched her phone, secured a room under an alias, and vanished from her own life. Yvette remained her only contact. Together, they tracked dozens of transactions leading back to Enright Logistics, a firm fronting as a community distributor. Publicly, its founder Colby Enright received praise for civic leadership. Privately, his network funneled money through shell organizations. The scope was vast. Maren realized it wasn't just financial abuse. It was systemic theft disguised as public service. Yvette discovered a dormant storage unit linked to Enright that was still drawing power. Maren visited the site wearing old maintenance gear. The building looked dead, but she heard the low hum of generators. Inside were mismatched boxes labeled as school materials. Instead, they held expired medical kits, unused uniforms, and fake IDs with children's names. Surveillance monitors flickered nearby. She documented it all, and slipped out through a loading bay. A dark sedan passed as she reached the street. That night, the hotel front desk reported a man asking for her by name. She relocated before dawn. Yvette grew distant, her messages shorter, her voice shaky. At a quiet diner, she handed Maren a flash drive without a word. It contained internal emails, vendor codes, and one audio file. In it, Enright and Councilman Beckett calmly discussed limiting risk exposure and securing silent routes. The language was casual, rehearsed. Their confidence was built on years of protection. Enright's voice stood out, measured, arrogant. Beckett spoke like a man convinced of invincibility. They weren't just misusing public funds. They were engineering a city-sized cover-up. Maren's stomach turned. This was no longer about ethics. It was about survival. Maren contacted Mal Sharp, a former journalist silenced after exposing city corruption. He lived in obscurity, nursing broken trust and old injuries. They met in a parking garage. He brought printouts, time-stamped photos, and a battered voice recorder. Years ago, he'd tracked the same nonprofit schemes, but lost all support after receiving threats. Now, with Maren's data, the pattern was undeniable. Deliveries to community centers occurred at night. Empty crates hauled back out. Offshore accounts linked to the same shell firms. They agreed to release the findings together. The truth had weight, but the danger had teeth. Yvette's final message read, "They found me. It's over." Her car exploded in the driveway an hour later. Police cited engine failure. Maren knew better. She went underground with Mal, living out of a borrowed basement. They encrypted their files, scrambled IPs, and planned a strategic leak. Then Mal disappeared during a routine errand. His car was discovered running near the water, empty. The master file was gone. Her only backup had been accessed and erased. Someone had breached their firewall. Maren stared at the blinking cursor on a blank document. Her mission wasn't over. It had just become hers alone. Under the identity of Gwen Hart, Maren took a clerical job in the Department of Community Operations. A friend forged her credentials. She passed background checks using synthetic identities. After 3 months, she gained limited clearance. While scanning procurement files, she found references to a facility labeled Sector 5A. Nowhere in public zoning, but heavily funded. Gwen scheduled a compliance review under her alias. The facility was locked down, but accessible with a forged badge. What she saw inside were stacks of equipment with serials removed, server banks humming, and storage containers full of files marked archived applications. She snapped photos and walked out. Sector 5A was a data farm. It harvested personal details from social service applications, funneling them into predictive models sold to private firms, insurance companies, banks, police departments. The data was scrubbed, bundled, and weaponized. Gwen's hands shook as she reviewed the logs. Names of children, home addresses, mental health diagnoses. Enright wasn't just stealing money, he was selling people's lives. She copied what she could, stuffed it into a decoy lunchbox, and left. That night, she sat in silence, staring at the drive. It wasn't enough to leak it. She needed proof the city couldn't deny. She contacted Selena Cruz, a lawyer who'd defended whistleblowers across the country. Selena reviewed the files and agreed to represent her anonymously. They prepared a data package with notarized testimony, internal documents, and 3 corroborating sources. Mainstream media refused it, too risky. Selena leaked it to a global ethics agency. Within days, European outlets began running the story. At home, silence persisted, but Marin didn't stop. She tracked more contracts, quietly flagged fake vendors, and mapped every hidden budget line. The deeper she went, the more she understood. This was no single scandal. It was a citywide design. Pressure from abroad forced the Department of Justice to announce a formal inquiry. Enright denied the allegations, calling them a political hit. Beckett resigned, citing health issues. Selena became the target of online harassment and shadow investigations. Gwen received a summons from an unfamiliar director. In a private office, he asked her what she wanted. "You're talented," he said. "We can make this go away." She declined. That night, her apartment was broken into. Nothing taken. A single message typed on her laptop. "Your window's closing." The screen stayed on until sunrise. She acted. With Selena's help, they launched a secure leak site. Every post came with verified documents, recordings, and internal memos. Word spread. Protesters gathered. Council meetings were disrupted. Enright-funded programs were audited and frozen. Beckett's financial records leaked. He'd received payments disguised as real estate dividends. The city scrambled. Gwen remained hidden, but her name became myth within municipal circles. The mole who dismantled the machine from within. Her weapon wasn't violence or sabotage, it was proof. Irrefutable, cold, and public. A voicemail surfaced. Enright threatening a former contractor. The voice was unmistakable. It was enough. Federal agents raided his offices. Charges were filed. Racketeering, wire fraud, data exploitation. Beckett fled the state, but was arrested at a private airstrip. The fallout was national. Marin was offered a role on a new integrity board. She declined. Instead, she delivered her final folder to a young investigative reporter with clean hands. The files bore no name, no signature, just truth layered and complete. Her goal had never been glory. It was clarity. Other cities followed suit. Marin's model was replicated in Boston, Detroit, and Atlanta. A new alliance formed, connecting whistleblowers to legal and digital support. Selena expanded her firm, offering secure publishing platforms. Philadelphia rewrote procurement laws. Enright's empire collapsed. Marin vanished into rural obscurity, teaching math at a public school. Her students never knew who she was. She preferred it that way. Her impact didn't need spotlight. It echoed in reform bills, in audit systems, in every child whose data remained safe. Her silence had outlasted the noise. One spring morning, she received a letter. No name, no return address. It read, "You didn't forget me. I didn't disappear." The handwriting was familiar. Mal had survived. She smiled and tucked the letter between old lesson plans. The past remained where it belonged, close but not consuming. She didn't keep trophies. The files had been shredded. Only her mind carried the weight of what she'd done. That was enough. Some victories don't need monuments, just memory. Years later, a student podcast titled Hidden Systems featured her story, masked in theory and speculation. They debated her alias, the timeline, the leak. No one guessed correctly. She listened in silence. Their voices were hopeful, curious, bold. The kind of voices her actions had protected. As thunder rumbled in the distance, she turned off the lights and gazed at the empty street. Her legacy wasn't written in headlines. It lived in every system corrected, every file protected. Peace, she'd learned, isn't the absence of conflict. It's the certainty that someone somewhere finally saw the whole truth.